Hi, welcome back to Lee Jasper Drive Time. Well, we're talking about the issue of racism in British schools, and a recent report by the YMCA, the Young Man's Christian, was it YCMA? Well, YMCA, the Young Man's Christian Association, produced a report about the experience of black children in British schools, and the results were quite startling and shocking. They showed that the vast majority of black kids in British school experience racism, with over 51% of the young black boys saying they heard racism in schools almost every day and all the time. It also found that the attitudes of teachers, and this is young people reporting in the survey, the attitudes of teachers were seen as the biggest barriers to educational success for some young people. And it talked about the nature of structural racism being hugely problematic. Well, to discuss these and the solutions to these perennial challenges, and these are challenges we've faced in this country over the last 40, 50 years, I'm joined by Lee Jasper Drive Time by Patricia Lamour, MBE, Chief Executive of Aspire Education. Patricia, thanks for joining us today on Lee Jasper Drive Time.
Thanks for having me.
Another report, and there are acres and mountains of reports talking about racism in British school. I'm guessing that the report findings don't surprise you in any way. What's your reflections on that, and what are some of the solutions?
Well, I think, that's what I'm really here to talk about, to spend shorter time on all the statistics and more time that we delve into what are we going to do about it. I'm tired, quite frankly. I'm sure you must be, in terms of fighting racism. My master's that I did for the Institute of Education in the 80s was on racism in education. And I did a comparative study of England and the USA. And at that time, no one was writing about it. And I nearly didn't even get my master's.
Right.
But it was a fight, and I got through.
You didn't get your master's.
I nearly did,
because you wrote about racism.
Exactly.
Can I just explain to everybody that, if you're doing higher education in Britain, and you decide to focus on racism, then you're going to lose some marks for the privilege.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Yeah, it was a struggle. It was a struggle to become a teacher.
So you're a qualified teacher?
Yes, I'm a qualified science teacher. I've also taught in higher education.
So you're a qualified science teacher, because you said that almost underneath your breath.
Yeah, science.
Yeah,
chemistry and biology.
Wow, wow.
Yeah.
Science teacher. My days.
Yeah, so qualified science teacher, and of course I've taught in schools in this country, in Germany, and I've actually headed a top school in West Africa.
So you speak German?
I speak German as well, yeah.
So you're a science teacher,
yes.
Speaks German,
yeah.
You've run private schools,
yeah.
In Gambia.
Yeah, the top school.
The top school,
yeah.
Marina,
International. I'm sorry if I'm upsetting anybody else who's running the other schools, but it's one of the most foremost schools in that country. Yeah.
So one of the most foremost. So your experience, right, in relation to these matters is absolutely huge, and you're an MBE, having been recognised and awarded by the Majesty the Queen and so on. So all that experience, all that exhaustion, all that you're tired. Where does it leave us in relation to what some of the solutions are?
Well, what gives me the energy and the passion and the drive is the belief that our children are geniuses. There's nothing wrong with black children's brain.
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
They can achieve just as much, if not more so. They've got to overcome the toxic culture of racism in schools. Many teachers, they learn about adverse childhood experiences, they learn about trauma, etc. Racism intersects with all of those and amplifies the effects for these children. So therefore, they will be depressed, they will be down, they will not feel worthy, they will be angry, righteously angry. They will be, not giving of their best. So all the kinds of things that you think that have traumatized children. And there's been a study in America where one of the longest studies where they followed African American families over many years. and they've seen that the effect of racism, that black families are living shorter. They're getting sicker and dying younger.
So ill health
Yes.
and early death.
Racism. So, and then even in the same where the YMCA report was put in the World Economic Forum, my eyes were drawn to another one by the American Pediatrics Association. So doctors who deal with children, and they've come out and said that racism is affecting not only mental health, physical health of children. And therefore, you have to do something about it. And they're talking about racism affects those who see it, who perpetrate it, and who are victims of it. So all three. So it's not just the victims, it's the perpetrators and the others who are the observers, bystanders, etc. So it is a traumatic thing. We also, as a Aspire Education Group, as our way of investing forward for the African and Caribbean community in this country during COVID times, we undertook a historic survey of African Caribbean parents, carers, teachers and support staff nationally in this country. And we had 1,145 views. That's double the amount that informs that YMCA views.
So comprehensive.
So YMCA is based on 645 respondents. So we had double. So our survey is extremely robust in terms. And unlike other people's survey, we weren't commissioned by anybody. We commissioned ourselves.
Right.
So Aspire Education Group, Father to Father,
Yeah.
Black Sox, many of our partner organisations, we work together. We want to gather the evidence for us, by us.
Father to Father is a local group in Hackney. It's got national ambitions, if not London-wide ambitions. What it does work with black fathers in relation to equipping them to emotionally be empathetic and intelligent in the development and the growth of their children. And Black Sox, BLAKSOX, is the UK's one of the UK's only black social movements. So those are the two that help support Aspire in development of this questionnaire, which has got to be one of the first of its kind.
Well, really, because we design the questions. So we don't ask foolish questions that we do not intend not to act on the answers, because I think that's a frustration. When many people respond to so-called national surveys, it's either someone's academic interest or a commission of inquiry, and you know how it goes. Inquiry, inaction, report and inaction.
Followed by inquiry.
Exactly, followed by another inquiry. I mean, we know the Scarman inquiry, the Rampton report, the Swan report, there's so many reports.
Yeah.
The
The
Stephen
undercover
Lawrence
piece in inquiry.
There's so many inquiries looking at this, and they keep saying, well, why? We know why, but you refuse to acknowledge why. And for instance, right now we have a government which is refusing to acknowledge that disadvantage is racialized, but disadvantage is systemic, And because of that, they will always be looking for individual answers. The outcomes for exclusions, for attainment across the board, from school to university, the gap between black and white students is going like this.
Widening.
It seems the longer you stay in the education system, the more the gap persists. If we start from universities, there's a gap of about 26.3% between white students and black students. And these are students who've been comparable, same kind of A-levels to get into university, in terms of getting 2-1s and firsts. 77.1% of white students get firsts. We're talking about 50.8% of black students. And remember, they both started with similar, in order to be admitted into university, they've had similar admission A-level results. And then when you go down into A-level, you find that the white students are 3 times more likely to get better A-level results, top A-level results, than the black students. Then when you go down to the GCSE, you're talking about black Caribbean students, less than 3 out of 10. Less than 3 out of 10 black Caribbean students are getting grade 5 at English and Maths GCSE. That means that is the tipping point grade to go on to A-levels. To go
Let
on
me
to,
ask you a key question,
yeah.
because that's not the experience of African children. So there's a difference between the educational attainment levels between Caribbean descent people, children, and African children.
Yes.
African children are often cited as doing better, the boys better than the girls, but overall they
And
do
do you know
better.
why?
I want you to tell us.
Because they've been living longer in this country.
Right.
And therefore, their parental input is like my generation.
Yeah.
I would say they're about 20 years behind us.
Right.
And if they stay here 20 years longer, they'll be joining us. It'll be a race to the bottom.
So you say that the longevity of the Caribbean community in the system here in the United Kingdom has degraded the community's ability to succeed. And if the African community stays here as long as we have, they may well end up with the same
They may
fate.
well. You see,
Yeah.
the thing is, it's about, but also there's a key difference here as well. Many African families, they travel home often. They retain many of their cultural, perhaps their language. This is very, very key and very important, as you know, in terms of any sort of cultural heritage. And now that Africa is emerging, you know, we've now got the Continental African Free Trade Agreement, which is larger than the economic...
Biggest free trade market in the world.
Biggest in the world. And we are now, and I think also the mindset, we now have stopped talking about the ethnic minority and talk about black people as the global majority. And make that paradigm switch, so that black children don't always think, oh, I'm a minority, therefore we cannot ask for anything, we cannot do anything. We are the majority on the planet.
So cultural resilience is very important in terms
Key.
of any child's educational
Key.
development.
Key.
And those children who have greater levels of cultural resilience are better able to withstand the predations of a discriminatory system.
Well,
And I think the other thing is that the Caribbean descent community, being here longer, but also having lower skills and educational standards, means that they're invariably located in low-paid jobs, and therefore poverty plays a part in explaining that difference. But cultural resilience is going to be very important. So you've done this fantastic study. So how is it? When can people expect to hear the results and hear what you?
Well, the first thing we're going to be doing it in. We were taken aback a bit because we were establishing a consortium to bid for the National Tuition Programme.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think people should know about it, that there is a 1 billion fund out there where the government has given 650 million to schools, 350 million to the National Tutoring Programme, and they've made their decisions amongst the tutoring providers that should provide catch-up tuition for disadvantaged learners. And if you look at the actual leadership of who they've chosen, only 2 could we find out of 32 providers actually had any black leadership.
So let me get this right. So £1 billion is being spent in order that British children can catch up as a consequence of COVID. And your analysis is that out of that billion, from what you can see, you can only see 2 specific black providers. Is that right?
The 350 million was given to the NTP programme.
Right.
So they're the ones that, but it could be
750 million.
Yeah, the 650 goes to school, but there again, 96.1% of schools are headed by white heads.
Okay.
And here we've got 500,000 African, Caribbean and black other, according to DFE, children in schools. And when you do the proportionality of black head teachers to black children as opposed to white head teachers to white children, you've got 1 black head teacher for every 2,533 black children, whereas you've got 1 white head teacher for every 284 white children.
Well, this is a scandal because what it means is that critical resources for black children in some of the most poorly performing schools are not likely to reach specific providers such as black companies, black organisations, black education specialists who can provide that culturally resilience and confidence.
It's not, especially given COVID, this is not just about tuition. You know, we've got calls for the
Yeah.
black curriculum, for decolonising the curriculum.
Yeah.
We need...
It's about black confidence.
It's about black confidence, about black leadership.
So where will people be able to find the results of this questionnaire?
If they contact info@Aspire Education Group,
Yeah.
you will be invited to the launch, which
Right.
is coming up
Right.
in December.
Very prestigious
Yeah.
launch.
And we'll also be taking some of those key findings to there's a parliamentary inquiry, another inquiry, yeah, about the impact of COVID on education. And will be submitted under the impact on disadvantaged groups. And we're going to make the point that disadvantage is racialised in this country. 80% of the teachers and the carers in our survey have either witnessed or experienced racism or unconscious bias. So they're mirroring.
Reflecting the
They're
YMCA.
mirroring.
Yeah.
I mean, in fact, probably, you know, and if it's affecting the professionals, it must be affecting the children.
Okay, and for those parents at home who'll be watching, worried about their schools, their children's education, give us your top tips for parents in relation to making sure that their children, you know, survive and thrive in what can be a very difficult system.
Okay. First of all, we've got to start early. So make sure that your children are school ready.
Right.
So get them.
Can I just say about that? Because I teach my children, make sure your children can read before they go to school.
Yes, exactly.
Because I learned to read before I got to school. My
That's right.
grandfather taught me.
Exactly.
So, and
That's
it put
key.
me at a distinct advantage, although I was an incredibly naughty boy in the end, but that's because I was too smart. Not to. But yeah, learn to read before you go to school.
Yeah. Alphabet, numbers.
Yeah.
Interact with your children. Get them to be confident, organised. That is the first, because many children do not come from our communities and from poorer communities school ready. That is key.
And isn't reading to your child and having your child read to you, these are as early as possible, are critically important in terms of building confidence.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I mean, if you look at independent private schools, at age 10 and 11, they're getting the children to take visitors around the schools, presenting themselves with such extreme confidence. Our children can do the same. And it is a fact that many black children are thriving, are doing well in primary schools. They can do much better. But then the downhill descent starts once we get into secondary school. So primary school is important. Make sure that they are equipped to do well in their SATs. The critical number, you've got to get 100 or over. That is the SATs mark. All children should
That's
be
the
able.
benchmark for SATs.
Benchmark, 100 or over. Then once they get into secondary school, you need to follow them. You need to follow them, particularly leading up to their choices at 14 and 15. Don't leave it to your child to choose what they like or where their friends are.
That's right.
Forget that. You are the parent. You've got to be looking ahead in terms of so that when they make choices there, this doesn't close off a whole avenue or area of profession or apprenticeships. So the broader the GCSE spread, the better. And there are facilitating subjects. If you want your child to get to a top Russell Group university, there are facilitating subjects at GCSE. English, maths, sciences, the EBAC, history, and a foreign language.
Absolutely key.
Okay, so you've got to make sure that your child, you know, drama, art, business studies are fine, but
not at the expense of core subjects.
Not at the expense of those facilitating subjects, because then if you don't have those, you can't then go on to do the A-levels, and if you're without A-levels at the moment, you cannot get into university.
Okay.
The access courses that they used to be, perhaps they need to bring those back to enable.
Well, I'm a child of the access
I
courses. I came out of prison being a naughty boy. Well, actually, I wasn't. I was arrested under sus charges, but it's a long story. But nevertheless, having got my degree, it was a consequence of being able to access access courses. And access courses where you go onto a course, they used to exist in this country, and if you passed the foundation year, you then got a guaranteed place at university, even if you had no qualifications when you left school.
They need to bring that back.
So they need to bring it back.
Yep.
I was a beneficiary of it, and I know thousands of people in my age group were beneficiaries of it.
Because it's about lifelong learning now.
Yeah.
Lifelong learning. It's not just about one shot and you do it and you miss it or you have to do it. No, the world is changing. Everything is digital. We need more skills.
Super flexibility is going to
Yeah.
be the key for young people, isn't it, in the future, particularly
Transferable skills.
in the digital economy, and transferable skills, as you say.
Mm-hmm.
So having that broad palette and range of academic learning is going to best suit your child.
And the most important thing, I think, the parents, you have to have the back of your child. They have to know that they can rely on you to support them through the school, and take their side and make sure they tell you, as I say, you must tell me the truth so I can lie for you.
Absolutely. I must tell me the truth of your life for you. Well, we're a Christian show here on Ben TV. But, you know, making sure you've got your child's back. When my children went to secondary school, I make sure I go and visit every teacher,
That's right.
that they've got my name, they've got my phone number, that I'm in contact with them. You know, I attend every parent. I was a school governor, and I was shocked at the extent to which some black parents just never turned up to parents' evening, leaving their children to
Fend
out
for
to
themselves.
fend for
It's
themselves.
no.
It's outrageous. So I think that all these things are important. Well, we're going to draw our interview to a close. Those are key aspects of advice for parents. Thank you so much, Patricia Lamour, MBE, for joining us on the Lee Jasper Drive Time. Just tell people again where they can get more information about Aspire
Yeah.
Group Prep.
Our website is www.aspireeducationgroup.com, and also if you would like to write into us, info@aspireeducationgroup.com. And tomorrow I'll be speaking in Uganda about the
Well,
same
there
thing.
you go. You'll catch her in Uganda if you can. We'll be stuck here in rainy, wet, cold Britain. But thank you very much, Patricia Lamour. We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back after this short advert.